Welcome back to the studio. Today I'm doing another one of the smaller quilts that I prepped earlier last year. Actually, it was a Santa Babies. It is a laser cut and pre-fused applique kit that you could purchase. The background and the inner and outer border are something that I did separately, but all of the applique pieces come in a kit. The applique fabric itself is pre-selected for you, and they are pre-backed with Steam 2, and then that is all laser cut in a manufacturing process, and then you just peel, place, and press. It's all done with the iron, so almost any skill level could do the applique. We do not top stitch any of the applique, we just fuse it. If you fuse it properly during that process, then it is permanent. Steam is required during that process, and you do have to make sure you're both using steam and adequate amount of heat and time. I can't give you a time on that, but I can give you a clue. If you are top stitching or quilting over a applique product with Steam in it and you're getting gumming on the needle, that is an indication to you that you have not fused properly. You have not fused either with steam or long enough. So that is one of the clues that I can give you for anytime you use Steam in a applique project. So the couple projects ago, I was deliberating over one of two different patterns from the Snowflake Flurry design collection. There was a couple different ones in there. One of them was a much larger design. It was an 11.5 inch design. It was a meandering design, which basically goes up and down. And I felt like it was maybe, well, and the other one I was going to use was a sashing, which was like a 3¼ inch design. I felt like the sashing was going to be too dense and too small for the large design that I was going to be using. And the meander was the right one. So today I'm going to pick up the sashing one and use it today, and that way I don't feel bad about having gotten both of them. This is a much smaller project. The project is Santa Babies. Again, it was a laser cut and pre-fused applique project. It was a kit from Elementz, and I had finished that, I believe, last year. And as I've said before, I'm trying to catch up with my past, trying to get some of these tops that are literally just stacked up all over. I'm trying to get some of these quilted and get the binding and sleeves on them when the sleeve is applicable, so I can go ahead and hang them in the studio. And I will tell you, I wouldn't pan the camera around too widely today because I've got stacks of stuff all over. I've got a huge mess behind the camera. I spent a couple days looking for a quilt that I did not have. I didn't think I had it, but the office thought I might have had it. But I tore this place up looking for it. And as easy as it was to tear it up for 2 days, it'll probably take me a week to get it back in order. I took everything off of the walls in the whole back section to do an inventory of everything that I had, because I couldn't understand why I couldn't find this quilt that I actually didn't have. So today I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then after that I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning the mess that's behind the scenes, and it's a pretty big mess. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I already have the Santa Babies basted onto the backing. I will say that there's a couple things I'm going to do. I have two battings on the quilt today. I'm using scraps again. One of the batting does extend all the way to the side of the backing, which I like. The other batting is a scrap and it doesn't. What I will be doing today is experimental. Where the Santa Baby's face is not showing up as much as I would like on the background that I chose. It's a me problem, it wasn't a kit problem. And so I am going to do a panto across the whole quilt, but I'm also going to do a little bit of ruler work. I'm going to stitch right around the head of the two dogs in the applique. And I have double batting in here, so I'm hoping those faces will pop out a little bit more, even though the value difference between the applique and the background is very, very slight. I am using a pretty dark colored blue thread, so that's going to make it show up a little bit, and I may test that a little bit. I may lower it to a lighter color. But I'm going to do that before I get started with the applique, and so that's going to be the first crazy thing I do. Then I'm going to go ahead and load the applique. But before I do any of those, I'm just going to show you the two quilting patterns, one that you've seen already and one that I'm going to be using today, and then we'll switch over to the quilt. This is the pattern that I used in one of the recent quilts, Snowflake Flurry by Maureen from Humblebee Quilting. It's formatted by Urban Elements. As you can see, it's a meandering pattern and it's 11.5 inches high. This shows 3 repeats. This is what I used the last time, and I think this one will be too big for this particular quilt. So this is the one that I'm going to be using today. This one is by the same designer. It's meant to be like a sashing or a border, but I'm going to use this as an overall panto today. It's only 3 1/4. My quilt today is only about 29 by 29 total. So I'm going to be using this. It has, shows 4 repeats here, and so I think this is going to work really well for today's design. I'm going to put my ruler base on. I have my ruler foot on, my ruler base on, and I'm just going to stitch around the face on the Santa babies, because it's just, when you're looking at it head on, it's just not popping. So I've got my machine on BSR2. I'm not using the IntelliQuilter at the moment. I'm on manual mode. And I'm on BSR2, which is good for ruler work. And I'm just going to go really slow. Okay. So it's a nice dark line. What I wanted to do was to be able to make that face pop out. And I was worried that that blue is going to be a little too dark. But I think that it's going to be perfectly fine, and you'll be able to judge for yourself when I get this off of the machine, and we have the panto work done on there as well. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do the bottom face as well. Now when I do the panto work over the whole thing, I believe that the two faces are going to stand out a little bit more the way I want them to. It just helped correct a value issue that I was having between the face and the background. That was my problem when I chose the background. So I'm going to go ahead and take my ruler base off and switch out my ruler foot back to my cup foot, and then we'll go ahead and program the design in. Okay, design so quilt, start new, erase, erase, reset the clock. We're working on a pantograph. We're going to enter the rectangle manually. And what did we say? I'm going to go for, I'm going to measure again. It's a small quilt, I know that. 29. 29 wide, 30 high. And we have the visual representation here on the screen. We can hit finished. And this is still in my downloads under Snowflake Flurry. It came up at 12 inches, so we really need to bring that back down. It's supposed to be 3 1/4. Right there is about 3 1/4. I just want to see on here. Yeah. I'm going to go up a little bit higher. Nope, I'm going to go back down to 3 1/4. Hit finished. We're going to commit to our continuous transition type. That just means what happens when it sews off of the quilt. It's going to keep sewing down until it gets to the point where it's going to sew back on to complete the design. And we're going to hit sew quilt. Panto sequencing, because I like to do that in case I have to quit in the middle of the quilt for any reason. So the first pattern is going to be this one. Continue. We're going to do the whole thing. I like to alternate back and forth, and I like to tie off and do the whole quilt. So now the whole thing is sequenced in alternating colors of green. If for any reason I need to quit, I can shut the machine off and pick up the next day, and the machine will let me know how much I finished. So I can hit sew quilt, and the machine is telling me where to start. It's taking my first stitch. My machine's on manual. And after we get a few rows done and we get into the background, I'll let you see what the design looks like. Up here in the darker blue, you're not going to be able to see it stitched. I have the quilt top finished, and I've taken it off, and I've trimmed the edges so that you can see that it's finished. One of the things that I wanted to point out was a problem that I detected fairly quickly. It was a problem for me. It's something that I keep struggling with, and that's the value of thread. When I was at the top, and I was using this thread, which to me is not super dark, and I was in the dark border, it was fine. Even on the inner border, it was fine. But as soon as I got to this first row where it was stitching out on the background, it was screaming to me. But I didn't get into quilting to torture myself, so there's no way in the world I was going to rip out this row. Now, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I did a video called Ombre Quilting, where I stitched on Gnome for the Holidays. And in that video I did 6 or 7 different shades of blue, starting I believe at the darkest blue at the top and working my way towards white at the bottom. It may have been the opposite, white towards blue at the bottom. But I remember doing that, and so instead of just ripping this out and starting over, what I did was progressively start switching to a lighter shades of blue as I worked my way down the quilt, so that the changing thread color looked intentional. And I was able to soften this blue and each row of blue with the next row of blue. So I've only used 4 shades. They're all isochord. They're all the same weight. I didn't change the thread on the back. The thread on the back was dark blue. You can't see any of that stitching or quilting. And I don't know if I was successful stitching around the head or not, if you could see that. I can see it a little bit better. I mean, I could still always go around it with a Pigma pen if I wanted to. But I did want to show you that there's always options. If you don't like the thread color, there's always a different way of thinking about something. But I also will say the dark on the light screams to me, but the light on the dark doesn't scream to me. I always prefer a lighter color thread than a darker color. But having said that, I will conclude my little thread essay here, and I'll pull back the camera so we can conclude. But this is it for the little Santa babies, stitching it out with the Snowflake Flurry. I really like this pattern. So including the backing thread, I used 5 different colors of thread. They were all shades of blue, the darkest of which was on the very back. Looks like I've got a thread there. And then we have 4 different shades down the front. It's a very small little sample, but it's very cute. This is the Batik. I believe this came in Batik and the dots. Santa babies, and there's a cat version called Santa Claus, and both very adorable. I haven't made the Santa Claus version yet, but this will be really quick to get the sleeve and the binding on, so that'll be quick. I've got a lot of those piled up, and I'm hoping my friend Marguerite will help me get some of those done. So thanks for joining me today here in the studio. I look forward to seeing you again next time. I just wanted to say I'm here in Ohio, manufacturers here in Ohio. Part of our design team is in Florida. Part of our shipping and design team is in Texas. We would like to know, where are you watching from? What state or what country are you watching from? So in the comments section, if you would, just let us know where you're viewing us from. And if you have any questions, also leave those in the comment section. So thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.